ECU Pirates have fired head coach Mike Houston, one of the more unsurprising moves with how the Pirates have struggled in recent memory. It's kind of disappointing because I really did like Mike Houston as a head coach. I think that he still can have an opportunity in the future. He is a very good coach. It was just a tough situation, and it ultimately did not work out. So now ECU, after going 27 and 38 in the Mike Houston era, is looking for a new head coach, and we will take a look at 10 coaching candidates that could replace Houston's job. The world of college football has changed quite a bit. So the list today is probably going to be different than it might have been 5 years ago, or even when Houston was applying for this job. This is a program that obviously has expected bigger things and wants to win. I think they have the resources necessary to be a competitive team. They're in a good recruiting area too, so you have the ability to make something happen. But this is a program that needs to be fixed, and there is nobody better than fixing programs than Chris Creighton. Chris Creighton, if you look at his record, you think, why is he on this list? 57 and 70 at Eastern Michigan. But if you understand what Eastern Michigan is in the world of college football, you would understand that what he has done there is simply incredible. Eastern Michigan in its career has gone to 7 bowl games. 6 of them were under Chris Creighton. They are a program that does not win football games. They are a program that was a disaster even when he showed up for the first couple of years. But he has been the most successful coach in that program by a long shot. He gets his guys to buy in, and he gets this program to turn around. That's what ECU needs right now. They need a program leader. They need a program builder, and Chris Creighton is that guy. Now, again, the record is probably going to make you scratch your head and think, why him? But if you take away some of his really bad years, which are the first couple of years, he has an impressive record. And again, it all involves context. He is a winning football coach. He is going to make ECU better, and he's going to build that program into what it needs to be. That's what you're looking for, is someone who can turn your program around and make it better than it was before, because you're in a really bad place and you need someone that can turn things around quickly. Clay Helton is next on the list. The Georgia Southern head coach has had really surprising success with the Eagles after his time at USC. I think a lot of people expected him to potentially struggle with Georgia Southern, but he's 17 and 16 and currently has them at 5 and 2. That is a surprise for a lot of people in the Sun Belt. I thought they were going to have a pretty good year. The experience they brought back showed me that they could be a competitive team this year. And at 5 and 2, they are competing for the Sun Belt title. Now, Clay Helton has switched things up for Georgia Southern. That's a team that was used to running the triple option, and he has turned them into kind of like an air raid team. So that's been really fun to watch, and he's had a lot of success at the group of five level. And I think that ECU should at least entertain seeing what his interest level is to take over their program. One of the guys that should be probably really high on their list is UNLV offensive coordinator Brennan Marion. Brennan Marion has a unique and innovative offense that could make ECU much better. And with how things have gone under Mike Houston, the offense really needs to be good. I think it needs to be better than it was. It needs to be good to compete in this conference. AAC has some unique offenses, and Brennan Marion brings kind of a unique approach. That double running back in the backfield next to the quarterback formation that he runs is been a talk of college football, and he is someone who is going to be in the running for head coaching jobs. So right now, I think if you're ECU, you should target him while teams aren't really super interested. Now, granted, he probably is focused on a college football playoff run. He has a big game against Boise State coming up. He is someone who has the ability to make ECU better. He's going to give, at worst, he's going to give teams something to think about offensively, and you get to show if he is ready to be a head coach at the Power Five level. And we'll talk about why maybe he doesn't have as many options for the Power Four team, Power Five teams, whatever, that he might in the past. And we'll discuss that here in a little bit. But Brendan Marion would be a really good candidate for ECU to target in this coaching search. Justin Fuente has been out of the head coaching game for a little while now. He's currently an analyst at Indiana, and he is someone that I think would be a good fit for ECU. He had success in the AAC when he was with Memphis, and I think that he could go back and get back to where he started or left off, I should say, with the Tigers. Now, it's going to be difficult. It's a different age of college football since he was a head coach at Virginia Tech last. So we'll see if the interest level is there, but he's 48 years old, so he definitely has the uh, long-term ability to coach this team. 26 and 23 at Memphis, including 19 and 6 in his final 2 years, which got him the Virginia Tech job. Obviously, the Hokies job did not go as expected long term, but he did go 10 and 4 in the first season with the Hokies. So he has the ability to coach. I think that it'll be fun to see what he could do with ECU. I think that I don't know what his interest level would be, but I think ECU should at least give him a chance, give him a call, and see what his interest would be and how that could work out. Now, this one might be a little bit of a stretch, but I put Glenn Schumann on this list. Now, hear me out on this. Recently we've seen some coordinators become power four coaches, and I think that there's still definitely a market for that. So Schumann's probably a little bit of a stretch here. Same with even Brendan Marion. However, I think Brent Venables may, and his struggles with Oklahoma may have changed how teams view what a coordinator can do at the power forward level as a head coach. It may make people hesitant to hire a coordinator who does not have head coaching experience, and that might be the one thing holding him back. Now, Glenn Schumann could also decide that I don't want to go to ECU. I want to stay at Georgia and win national championships as the defensive coordinator. But he has been on the list of these head coaching jobs for a while. And what's holding him back? Obviously, we're not in those discussions. We don't know if he's interviewing and whatnot, but I think that there may be some hesitation now because Brent Venables is one of the best defensive minds in college football. But right now, the experiment at Oklahoma is not going well. Is that going to make teams more hesitant at the Power Four level to give a coordinator with no head coaching experience a chance? I think that that might, and that's what makes this so intriguing. And granted, like I said, it is kind of a long shot. Getting the one of the top defensive coordinators in college football to be your head coach in the AAC is a little bit of a stretch. But I think that maybe that hesitancy by teams with their inability to pull the trigger as quickly as they want to may give ECU a chance to snag someone of either Glenn Schumann or Glenn Schumann's level. You might get someone that is in the running for that. So it may not be Glenn Schumann himself, but it might be a coordinator that a lot of people really like. They just don't want to hire him because he doesn't have head coaching experience. Jim Mora Jr. was interesting to me because while he is 62 years old, the fact that he is doing some really exciting things at UConn says a lot about his ability to coach. Now, he may not be power four. I think that we are seeing nowadays that there are coaches who are good all around. There's also coaches that are good either as a power four coach or as a group of five coach. And I think Jim Mora Jr. has shown that he can figure things out at UConn. And he's 6 and 7 in 2022, currently 4 and 3. That's been a surprise so far for college football. And getting him to ECU would, to me, be a really interesting marriage because you look at what he's able to do at UConn, you give him more resources at ECU, plus he has NFL connections that helps him on the recruiting trail, that helps him with winning football games, and that's what ECU needs right now. So maybe not the most conventional pick as a head coach candidate, but someone who I definitely think deserves at least an interview, a phone call, whatever it is, to see what he would like to do. This was so fun to put together because guys like Corey Heatherman probably aren't going to show up on this list. But again, this is what I go back to. You're probably not going to get a Glenn Schumann. So who's somebody that's flying under the radar that's a really good coordinator that could get a head coaching opportunity? Corey Heatherman is not going to be, at least in my opinion, get a power four interview for anything. Granted, there's nothing open right now. ECU's the one job that is most recently open. He is someone who could be on that list. He has the Gophers in a really good spot defensively. They're 11th in scoring defense, and I don't think most people can name a single player outside of Coy Parrish on that defense. That is a defense that plays really hard. They play really well together, and Heatherman is a good defensive mind. Now, ECU needs their defense to step up. That has been a group that has struggled mightily, and they are looking for a turnaround. And maybe it's the defensive side of the ball that can get that going. But this is a guy who I think is flying under the radar, will probably get considered for some of these smaller schools. And ECU has the resources to help him in his first head coaching opportunity. I just don't know if that's what ECU is necessarily looking for. Maybe they're looking for someone with experience, but they also are looking for a really smart defensive or offensive mind to help turn things around. And to fit into that kind of line of thinking, Ricky Ronnie to me is a very underrated candidate. And here's why. He's 18 and 27 at Old Dominion. Now, a lot of these records that I'm telling you aren't overly impressive. We talked about that with Chris Creighton. It's the same thing with Ricky Ronnie. But when you look what Ronnie's done, he has produced, not on purpose, probably accidentally, a number of really good transfer portal players that have gone on to succeed at bigger schools. And this team gets ravaged by the transfer portal. They just lose so much talent, and all Ricky Ronnie does is continue to find ways to win football games. I really like his ability to call plays as an offensive coordinator at Penn State. I really like what he's done at Old Dominion. You've seen some of the players that he's produced. Now you give him more resources, you give him maybe more stability. You're probably still going to have to deal with the transfer portal, but you give him a better opportunity with ECU. And I think the wins come a little bit easier because right now at Old Dominion, he's consistently having to revamp his roster and figure out who are these new starters that haven't played much that are going to be, he's really good talent identifier. And putting him at ECU puts him in a more talented area. Well, the ability to bring in more talent. He's probably in a similar area than as he is with Old Dominion, but he has the ability to bring in more talent. He has more resources, and I think that he's going to be able to keep certain players a little bit better, and that should, in theory, produce more wins. The last two are again, some of these are really unique and really interesting. Jeff Monken is going to be on the list probably for a lot of Power Four programs, but I'm curious to see if he would take a job with better resources than Army. Granted, Army is 7-0. He is not taking any calls right now as they are undefeated. His offense is so unique, and maybe that's what ECU needs is a triple option. We saw what, maybe he runs something different. Kenny Machalolo is doing really good things at San Jose State without running the triple option. I think Jeff Monken is a really good offensive mind. It does necessarily limited to the triple option. That doesn't have to be his offense. He does not have to sit there and just run that. He can do whatever he wants because I think he has the ability to do that. The defense, too. I think that he has done a really good job of getting his defense to play at a high level. He has hired the right guy at coordinators. I think that he is a really good coach overall. It's not just because of the triple option. I just don't necessarily know if he'd leave Army for another AAC team in ECU. Now, the last one, probably not happening as Ruffin McNeil is 66 years old, but I think almost you just kind of have to break the curse. The fact that you fired him after it, that was obviously a whole thing. Since then, you've had Scotty Montgomery, you bring in Mike Houston, you've fired both of them. ECU is 36 and 65 since firing Ruffin McNeil. They're probably not going to hire him just to break a curse, but you also have to consider what you're going to be able to do to get a guy who understands this program. And there's obviously maybe some bad blood between Ruffin McNeil and this team, so probably unrealistic, but still, I wanted to talk about Ruffin and what he was able to do. 42 and 34 as ECU's head coach. They have not had the success that he had since he left, and maybe you're bringing him back to get things turned around to get this program in a better place. And then if he does that, you let him walk out on his own terms. He's kind of towards the end anyways, so in terms of his coaching career, so maybe you let him do that. Probably not. Again, this last one is always going to be someone that's just a little bit unique, a little bit different. But Ruffin McNeil maybe deserves at least a call just to see. But if there's too much bad blood, then obviously that's not going to happen. I'm curious who you guys think should be the next head coach for the ECU Pirates. This is a team with, I think, a lot of potential, the group of five, and they just have to get the right guy in place.